This is going to sound like so much hate, and I swear it's not.
And to move on to the least interesting division in the league, not that it's a bad one, it's just least interesting. The NFC South. We're going to start with the South winning Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Timmy, what did you have them at?
Keenan, I think you were so close when you were describing them to how I would describe them. I think this is the worst division in football. I really do.
Oh no, it is the worst division. I just didn't want to be too harsh, I guess.
Oh no, this is the worst division in football. I think.
Oh, absolutely.
There are two teams in this division that could be vying for the number one overall pick, and I think you could even convince me into a third one. So for the Buccaneers, man, I see regression. They won this division at 9-8 last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was exceeding expectations 100%. Since that, they haven't gotten any better. In fact, I think they've gotten worse. They've lost defensive pieces. Mike Evans is now 1 year older. Everybody on this offense is 1 year older. Last year, Rachaad White wasn't efficient. He was a great running back in fantasy football, purely based on volume. They were giving him the rock 25, 30 times a game, catching a bunch of passes, but he was not an efficient running back. I think this team declines. I have them all the way down at 5-12, baby.
Ooh,
wow.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm going to quickly go because I really I don't have like much to say about this team. I have them the exact same as last year. I think they're 9-8. Because here's the thing, as you're right, Timmy, this is the worst division in football. I think they've got a guaranteed 3 wins to me in the Panthers and Saints. They might get one there. Or maybe even 4. And then, obviously, depending on when they get the Falcons and how those Falcons games go, and then from there, I think that they could muster up 4 or 5 wins within their schedule. I honestly think that this team is pretty solid. They're going to be competing for getting in the playoffs, but they're not going to get there. I mean, they play the Broncos, they play the Commanders, they play the Giants, they play the Raiders, who I know those are a couple teams that you're higher on than I am, and then obviously they play their division. Like there's a way they easily can get to 9 wins. I got them at 9. I think they'll be competing just because of their division's not great.
Let me start off by saying I hate this division. Not only is it the worst, it's just the worst to watch, the worst to root for if you're having to root for it.
It was only cool when Brady was in it. Like and then obviously
when
Matt. Like there's always been one cool team in it at times. I mean, obviously there was a time with Drew Brees, and then Cam Newton was in there too. But then you had obviously Brady, and then you had the Matt Ryan. It was like there's usually like one cool team in it, and so it fills the boat. Like there's one cool team in it this year.
Yeah, I mean, the last 3 years really, it's just been uninspiring, and I think both of you are right in your assessment of the Buccaneers, which. This is why I hate the division. Like, you can make so many cases for all 4 teams, honestly, even the Panthers. If someone were to take the Panthers to win their division, you can't really argue it because there's nothing that either one of these other teams show you in this division that leaves you like, yeah, no, they're the cream of the crop. Aside from the Falcons, just based off what they have for talent and their quarterbacks coming off an Achilles. Either way, the Bucs to me are the hardest to evaluate because of what Tim said, right? Yeah, they got to 9-8 last year, but their talent is kind of just like held over. Like they've got good players, but they're all older. Baker, that was did he win comeback player of the year or no? DeMar Hamlin won it, right? Just by default.
But, Joe
Flacco. Baker was worthy of it last year as well. Can he do that again this year? Pretty much exactly what we thought about. Of Geno Smith going from the season prior into last year. That's how I feel about Baker Mayfield this year. Can he do it? Can he keep it up? If he can, yeah, they do have a shot at 9-8. Keenan, you mentioned they have automatic wins in their division. I don't see it as that. Every single year, there is a garbage-ass team in this division who will, for whatever reason, compete like hell in the divisional games. Happens every year, no matter who the quarterbacks are, no matter who the coaches are. So when I go through these divisional games, I'm like, yeah, whatever. You could pick any sort of outcome of any one of these teams for these divisional games, and it will probably happen. Like, it can just go so many places with them. I say all that to say I can't even give you a final record with the Buccaneers. I think their ceiling is 9-8. I think their floor is a 6-win team probably, and I think ultimately they get to 7-10. That's what I got. But
All right, we're gonna go.
Just to give you their ceiling, though, they do have Todd Bowles, who I think is underrated. He can coach a defense. And if Baker is at all good, that could be enough to steal you the division, or at least be in competition for it. But I do think they regress. Their schedule is actually pretty tough, too.
We're going to save the Falcons for last. Next, Panthers. We're going to go quickly through this. What do we think the Panthers are, Timmy?
I think the Panthers are a little bit better than they were last year. They get Deontay Johnson. I like that addition. They also drafted Xavier Legette. Very well could be a wide receiver. He's better than Jonathan Mingo, I'll tell you that. So it's an upgrade no matter what. So I like Canales. I think this could really work. He's made a record of turning quarterbacks around. So if he can correct the Bryce Young stuff, I think we're good. I don't think they're good, but I got them at 5-12, even with the Bucs. I actually have them. I don't mean to spoil this, but I have them second in the division at 5-12.
Oh man!
Alrighty, so I don't think they're really that good. But here's what I'm looking for. The same way that I'm looking for flashes from Jaden Daniels, I'm looking for flashes, hopefully, from Drake May. I understand Bryce Young is in year 2. I'm looking for him to have more command and control over an offense. He's got enough here to work with. You've got a good receiver in Deontay Johnson, Adam Thielen, solid. As he just said, Xavier Legette. You've got Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders. So, Jonathan Brooks when he comes back. So overall, you don't have the worst skill positions I've ever seen. And your line is not god awful. It's not great. So overall, their team offense is not the worst thing that it could be. You can have flashes with this offense. Bryce Young, flashes, look like you are worthy of being the number 1 overall pick in the draft, and that they didn't make a massive mistake by not taking CJ Stroud. That's it. 5-12.
Yeah, where the Bucs were, they got a lot of mid-tier players who are good enough and a mid-tier coach who's good enough to take advantage of a bad schedule. The Panthers, they did enough to improve their team, but not enough to where you can talk yourself into anything. I have them, I guess, at 6 wins, and that's being very generous. We need to see some sort of leap from Bryce Young. They need to get to 6 wins to have anything for any hope for the future. They'll probably end up at 5-12. They might even end up below that. And if they end up below that, then we should not even consider anything with the Carolina Panthers for the next 5 years, because they'll never figure it out if they get below 5 wins this year. They got to at least get to 6. They got to at least get to league average. They got to show they're competitive. And again, that's what's annoying about this division is I think they have just enough talent to steal some wins against the Saints, against the Bucs, maybe even against the Falcons. And this is just going to be a division that pisses me off the entire year when it comes to picking games, when it comes to teasers, when it comes to picking straight up against the Panthers. There's going to be no rhyme or reason to this division. And I'm ready for it.
The good thing about the Panthers this year is they have picks. They have 2 seconds. They have a first.
That's a start.
I think they got a couple fifths. So they've at least got their picks this year for them being bad.
That's a start.
That's good. That is a start. We're gonna go to the New Orleans Saints. I don't even sound excited.
Can I start with them? Can I start?
Yeah, please.
I believe they were in my question mark tier when I did my tiers.
Yeah,
but if there was any ever at all a team that qualified for the mid tier, the hot mid tier, it was the Saints. I mean, they qualify. They have such a mid tier head coach. They've got players who were formerly stars in Derek Carr and Kamara. And I actually think Kamara still has, quality years left in him. It's just this team and what's around it. I can't believe they brought Dennis Allen back. I don't know why they brought Dennis Allen back. There's enough on this defense for them to compete. He's a defensive coach. There's real actual data of Derek Carr being much better in his second year under any OC. Like the second year always ends up being like a quality season. So I say that to say this team has enough like quality and talent to where they could be like what the Bucs were last year. But I have a hard time talking myself into that. And I got them at 7-10. Mid of the mid of the mid of the mid, the Saints are. But don't be surprised if this dumbass team wins the division somehow and Dennis Allen's back in the fold next year. Just don't be surprised.
All right, Tim, you're good.
I think if this team wins the division next year, Kirk Cousins tore his other Achilles or something. I think this team could be competing for the number one pick. This team has been mismanaged from a front office standpoint, from a head coach standpoint. I don't know if you guys pay attention to Dennis Allen's press conferences. That man does not care. He does not hype up any of his players. He does not believe in any of his players. He just craps on them over and over and over again. So here's what's going to happen. 8 weeks into the season, this team's going to be like 1-7. Off the top of my head, I don't know where their bye is. I don't know. Dennis Allen will be fired week 8.
And week then 12's their bye.
Okay, perfect. So they're 1-7. He gets fired. They're going to win 2 more games after that, finishing 3-14, bottom of the division. This team, like you said, Kamara might have a couple years left on him. That's it. It might be a couple. He's getting old, and he gets a lot of touches a year. He's another volume guy. So he's not going to last another 4 years. That would be crazy. I think this is probably his last good year. Offensively, Taysom Hill, they use him too much. Put him in at quarterback. I don't care. Chris Olave is their best offensive player. And
He's
that's
really
not
their only offensive player, to be quite honest with you.
And that's not saying a whole lot. The defense
but he's still really good. I'll give him that. He's still really good.
I like Chris Olave. I would love him more if Derek Carr wasn't the quarterback. I think this team has a lot of flaws, and I think they're just going to lose game after game. Dennis Allen will be fired. You guys can look it up on your own time. Dennis Allen has been a head coach, I believe, for like 7 years.
He was awful.
So bad.
God.
I believe his best year was 7 wins. I believe that that's true. He might have made the playoffs with the Raiders, but I'm not positive.
He was awful with the Raiders.
Year after year, he's awful. And part of me thinks
he's
the only
24-46 for his entire career as a head coach.
That's really bad.
His best season was actually 2 years ago when he was 9-8.
Yep.
Wow. Incredible. 9-8 is the bar. Yeah, that's too high for Dennis Allen. The only reason I think he's a head coach right now is because Sean Payton retired, knowing he was coming back to the league, and he just wanted to play the Saints and be able to beat them. That was the only reason that he promoted Dennis Allen to head coach. He'll be fired. Mark my words. He will be gone. He will not be their head coach next year.
Last time he was fired after week 4, so I mean, the last time he was at a stint.
I do want to say this.
4-13, 3-14?
3-14.
I do want to say this before Keenan goes. Real case for them to be 1-7. Like their schedule is actually pretty tough, especially at the front end. Actually, Keenan, you should take 1 win off mine. Go from 7-10 to 6-11. 7-10 is way too much. Respect. I have to agree with you. I remember when he got hired to replace Sean Payton. Me and Keenan were very confused on the show about it. We're like, he was terrible as the Oakland Raiders coach. And yeah, 9-8 was his best season 2 years ago. I can't believe Mickey Loomis still has him here. And they are a prime candidate to be picking at the top of the draft next year. I completely agree. No clue why I gave them 7 wins other than the whole Derek Carr could be good this second year. The defense could be good, and they still have Alvin Kamara. That was really my thought. But you convinced me to take a win off, and we're going to 6 wins.
You've got multiple quarterbacks in this draft. They're going to take a quarterback this coming season. They're going to be 4-13. I have nothing about this team. Trade Kamara. Someone needs him. Some contender needs him.
Please.
Someone at the break will be like, man, we could really use a dual threat guy who can actually run between the tackles but can also catch passes. Someone will. Just trade him.
His career stats are like not far off from Christian McCaffrey's. They're scarily close, actually.
Oh, he's been very, very good.
No, he's been great. He's a great back. He's just been put in a situation to where early on in his career he had Drew Brees and he was in a good situation, and then now he's in a terrible one. He's 29. Like, we still sell Kamara jerseys at Johnson City because he's a Tennessee guy. Like, we still sell Kamara jerseys. Like, but they're 4-13. They're not going to be good. I don't care to talk about anyone that's not named the Falcons and somewhat the Bucs in this division. So we're just going to the Falcons. Sorry, fans of the Saints or the Panthers. I'm not actually sorry. Your team's not good. We only talk about the Patriots because they are our team. Get on podcast if you want that. Timmy, go on.
I like the Falcons. I do. I think I don't think I have any worries about the Achilles with Kirk. I think he'll be fine. I think he had enough time to where he'll be okay. And the Falcons do have a pretty solid offensive line, so I don't have too many worries there. I think he will elevate at least Drake London. I don't know about Kyle Pitts. I know a lot of people are pretty high on Kyle Pitts. He is an athletic freak, but it just hasn't worked out for him. I get it. He's had, Desmond Ridder at QB and Marcus Mariota, so it does make sense. But with Raheem Morris, I think the defense will be better, 100%. So I do like this team. I have them improving, I think, by 2 wins. I got them at 10-7, winning the division easily. 4 seed in the NFC.
I'll go right quick because I'm right after it. I have them 10-7, winning the division. I have a little bit more contested because the Bucs I have at 9-8, but the Bucs easily could be a team that has like only 7 wins. But I think the Bucs will be the same as last year, pretty much a 500 team. I do like everything on this Falcons team. I like the Falcons last year, and you got a quarterback who's a living, breathing guy, and you've got my guy in Bijan Robinson in the backfield. Absolutely. This team's going to be great, and you have arguably the best safety in the league in Jesse Bates. He's going to change a lot defensively there like he did last year already. So Matthew Judon as well, to bring up that too. They feel as if this team can go compete for at least a divisional round, if not a conference championship appearance. So they feel that way, and it really comes up to Kirk Cousins. How is your Achilles? How good can you play?
Yeah, man, this division's cursed. Like, this team by far has the most talent in the division. And then it's like, oh, by the way, you're getting what could be an upper-tier quarterback, but he's coming off the worst injury you could possibly have in sports. God hates this division for some reason. There's a world where this is a 12-win team. I actually got them at 10-7 as well. There's even a world where they could be 8-9. Like, I could see it going both ways with this team. They got a light schedule the second half, but they got enough tough teams, especially at the front end, to where, they could accumulate some losses. This division's so bad, though, it doesn't even matter because all they got to do is win the division. They should do that. If they can't, that's a problem. But, hey, they do have enough questions. Between Kirk coming off the Achilles, and I do think Raheem Morris is going to be a good head coach, but we just don't really know. His Bucs stint didn't go well the first time around, but I think he was like my age when he took that job. Kirk Cousins, man, I mean, it's unfortunate because he was playing at an MVP level when he went down. Like, that was truly the best football I'd seen him play, to the point where, like, I was considering, like, believing in him in a big game. Like, he was playing that way in November and was just clicking on all cylinders, and then he gets a torn Achilles. Luckily for him, he's a few years younger than Aaron Rodgers. But even Kirk on a torn Achilles, we all agree here, and I think most of America agrees, they should be able to hold it down for that division and at least make the playoffs. Go ahead.
That's what I was just going to say. And here's also the thing, too, with this team is their backup is better than what their starter was. They have Michael Penix, so I understand he is a rookie, but he is a guy who is older, and he's a more seasoned rookie, and then you're going to really get, because he is obviously older. He just came off playing in a national championship game. I know they didn't win the game, but he did play in the national championship game, and he has a guy like Kirk Cousins to learn from. So for some reason, either Kirk just can't go or he gets dinged up. They're not in the situation to where they instantly have to drop out and they won't make the playoffs at all, because Michael Penix is still a quarterback who I feel like can just make the smart decisions, and this team's still talented enough to just at least win the division. So that's good on their part that they did draft the quarterback there and they made the moves that they have, because they're preparing for now and for the future.
For sure.
Even though draft day was one of the weirdest things, we're like, wait, what? What did you do? And then after the decision, after you trade for Judon and you get all that stuff, you're like, okay, that makes way more sense than it actually did on draft night.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's still crazy because they could have took someone there and, immediately improved this team, which, I mean, maybe they still did technically in the long run. But, I mean, who knows? Maybe he wouldn't have been there in the second round for them to take. Obviously, they felt that way. But it is going to be something you can factor in case Kirk Cousins does get hurt. They're for sure. I mean, this for sure looks like a 2-year plan with Kirk Cousins before they turn it over to Penix.
Yep.
But like you said, if Cousins were to get injured or, if there's a game where he has 5 picks and they just throw Penix in there in relief, he'd be serviceable enough to where he could move the ball and get production out of the offense. So that's not a bad.
I'm more confident in him than Desmond Ridder.
Yeah.
That's not saying much, but I feel more confident in him than Desmond Ridder.
Yeah, absolutely. Like he's the only question you would have with Penix is the injuries, which is why it was so crazy that he went that high. So, yeah, he's someone who could even just by himself, even if they were just to throw him in by himself, no Kirk Cousins, they could probably still win this division with all that talent.
I would pick them if Kirk Cousins would tomorrow just said I'm out for the season with whatever. I don't wish any injury on him. I would still have them winning the division.
Yeah,
that just says anything.
I would have them winning below 500, but I would have them winning the division.
I would have them winning. I'd have them figuring out a way in winning the division.
It's terrible. It's depressing to talk about.
Is there anything else you want to say about the Falcons, or if not, I'm going to jump right into what I'm looking for in this division.
I'll jump in and start with it because it actually has to do with the Falcons, and it's Kyle Pitts. He's still, I think he's only 23 still. Like, he's younger than a good segment of rookies.
Michael Penix.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane how young he still is, all the physical tools that he has. I don't know what to expect from him this year. But the fact that even if he still had a subpar year, I don't think you can quit on him because of his tools, because of how young he is. If this were to be his last season in Atlanta, I think he could absolutely have a great second chapter of his career. But the fact that he does, as Keenan said, have an able-bodied quarterback throwing him the ball, someone who can see past 5 yards throwing him the ball, someone who can get him the ball at different angles, it should do wonders for not only him, but Drake London, but Pitts in particular. We were sold like Gronk mixed with Jimmy Graham when he was coming out of that draft. Like, he had unreal expectations, and we've seen not even a quarter of it. Like, I would say hardly even an eighth of what we were sold. We talk about expectations for Trevor Lawrence.
We saw a little bit of it year one, and that was it. Because he's over 1,000 year one, but he only had one touchdown. But year one was when
he's got 3 career touchdowns. Is that true?
He's got 6 career touchdowns now, but like in year one, like he had 10 for $119, 8 for $163, 6 for 102. So he had some games like that where you're like, oh, over 1,000 yards as a tight end for a rookie. This guy's gonna be something. And then had one of the worst seasons I've ever seen in my life from someone good.
He's someone in theory.
It was incredible.
He's someone in theory, like the way we said about like Justin Jefferson with Sam Darnold. He's someone that even the likes of Desmond Ridder should have been able to get the ball to. You know what I mean? Like, him being that athletic, he should have made life easy for those terrible quarterbacks in Atlanta. Him and Mariota. But
yep. So Kyle Pitts for you. For me, I'm going to kind of do a quick little 2-parter. I mentioned Bryce Young. Bryce Young is someone that I'm very interested to see how he grows and how he matures in his second season. But I already talked on that one. The other one, I mentioned his name, which is Bijan Robinson. Bijan has all the makings to be the best running back in the league. Obviously, that's McCaffrey right now. He has a firm hold on that. But Bijan easily could become number 2 by the end of the season. He's drafted in fantasy as if he's going to be number 2, obviously, him or Breece Hall. But I think that he has a legitimate shot to be the second best running back in the league, right behind Christian McCaffrey, obviously with Derrick Henry starting to be on the little bit of the decline with his age. And then other than that, there's not really a solidified back. Like Saquon's obviously got super talent, but he's been in and out with injury. And then other than that, there's not really a back where you're like, oh my gosh, they have to be there. There's a lot of backs that's kind of in rotation. That's a lot of how the systems are, 2 back sets and things. So I think Bijan could put himself in. I'm the clear-cut second best running back in the league, right behind Christian McCaffrey this year, and I'm interested if he does so.
I think I am, for the Falcons at least, I'm looking forward to Drake London. I want to see him take that step. He's a big play guy that I really believed in coming out of college, and then it just, similar to Kyle Pitts, just didn't have the quarterback that could get him there. So I'd love to see Kirk take him to another level. That'd be great. But I'm definitely most excited to watch the Saints' downfall this year. I will not be tuning into a single Saints game, I don't believe, because they won't be winning very many. Another thing we didn't really talk about is the Falcons got rid of Arthur Smith. That's an incredible upgrade for them.
Yes, it is. I've never seen so many botched, not only red zone trips, but inside the 5 trips. I've never.
And you had talked about Kyle Pitts not getting his looks because of Arthur Smith. He was giving them to Jonnu Smith. What the hell's going on? It's like,
Bijan, they would be such in like 2nd and 4 positions, and it's like, oh, Bijan just had a nice 50-yard run or whatever to get you down there. God, I promise you, his workload at Texas was bigger than what you're giving him. He's going to be just fine. Just give him the ball. He's easily your most talented offensive player, and it's not close at this point without what Kyle Pitts has shown. Just give him the ball and let him go. You drafted him that high for a reason.
Well, there were so many times they would be, I'm not even kidding, like inside the 1, 4th and goal. All right, just hand it to your back or QB sneak it, like something efficient, something that's an either or. And they'd run like a play action or a shovel pass. Like they would get way too cute inside the 5.
Jet sweep.
Yeah, like honestly.
And it's like, just literally run a read option. You had Desmond Ridder. Like just run a read option. He's fast. Like between Desmond Ridder and Bijan Robinson and Kyle Pitts, you should not have red zone trips where you really get nothing. And Drake London. You have all 4 of them. You shouldn't have many red zone trips where you have to settle for 0. It's not even just 3. It's like set up for
Tim,
0.
I do gotta ask you.
You should get some offense.
I do gotta ask you, Tim. You're a Giants fan, as we know, as we established. But you were vehemently on this train last year of fire Matt Canada, like almost as if you were a Steelers fan. And we just talked about Arthur Smith. Now he's the OC for the Steelers, and even though, like I just said, I think his play calling was shoddy at times, like he got way too cute, I think it's obviously an upgrade over Matt Canada. But I do want to know, who's your Matt Canada for this year? Like, who's the one you were rooting for to be fired? I mean, you've mentioned that Sean Payton's going to be on fraud watch. You've mentioned how bad Dennis Allen is and how deservedly so he will likely be fired.
Dougie P.
Yes.
Dougie P.
So who's the one for this year?
I don't think I can come up with a Matt Canada. I really don't. I think he was a tier above everybody else. It is tough. I think it's got to be Arthur Smith. I think just from a Pittsburgh standpoint, like it's like maybe I just hate the Pittsburgh Steelers, but if he's anything like Canada, it's going to be Arthur Smith. But I'll have to get a better answer for you.
Okay. Because I can at least see Arthur Smith like. That's the thing. Like, he gets too cute. I could see him getting, like, running a trick play at the wrong time. Like Keenan said, a jet sweep when you can just, like, run it into the back of your O-line. That would be a better choice. Whereas, like, with Matt Canada, that was his play at all times, was either a run up the middle with Najee or a screen, a wide receiver screen on, like, 3rd and long or even 4th and long. Like, he just had no – I've never seen a less aggressive OC than Matt Canada.
The middle of the field was just not used on pass plays, and like
Nope.
Pat Frymouth.
My guy loved himself.
Like, okay, let's throw it up to a double. All right, last question that I want to ask, since we've gone through all 32 teams. Don't pick your own team our player from your own team, because obviously we'd be excited for our own teams. One player this year that you're just genuinely wanting to do well. Like, who do you want to succeed?
I'm going to need to go last. You got one, Keenan? You can go right ahead.
I have one, Kyle. Do you have one, or do you want to go instantly?
I got to think about it.
Okay. So I have multiple people. Like, I've always been a Joe Burrow guy, but I think he's going to succeed. The one guy that I actually am really wanting to succeed this year is Jaden Daniels. I very much like Jaden Daniels. I want him to be one of those next best quarterbacks. And I think the NFC I think needs to get more of those guys. And two, I just really like him. I like everything I've seen in college to now, what I've seen in the preseason, and I would like to just I like him. I just have a like for like how he plays. He's fun. I wanted the Patriots to get him, but the Patriots obviously ended up getting Drake May because Jaden went 2. Fine, but Jaden Daniels would be the one guy because again, like other than Marvin Harrison Jr., but like I think that's a shoe-in. I don't even need to worry about it. Jaden Daniels is a guy who I want to see succeed.
I got my guy, so I'm good to go.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to go a little bit deeper on this. There's a chance that he doesn't really see the field a lot, but I believe in him, so I'm calling my shot right here. Keon Coleman for the Buffalo Bills, a huge big play guy. At FSU, man, he was going up and getting balls that he had no business going and getting. I think that's like one of the prime people that Josh Allen needs. If they're scrambling and they're, like going on the run with it, I think that could work out really well. And Josh Allen needs a number one target. I can tell you right now, Dalton Kincaid is not going to have 1,300 yards. Somebody's got to have over 1,000 receiving yards because Josh Allen is going to throw for close to 4,000, and it's got to go somewhere. So I'm taking my shot on Keon Coleman, big play guy. I think it's going to work out.
I think he'll definitely get plenty of snaps in Buffalo. I think towards the end of the year, especially, like his workload will be up there, and he'll be one of Josh Allen's favorite targets. This is a tough question. There's many of people I want to see succeed. This is kind of generic, honestly, but it's the first one that comes to my head. It's someone, I mean, I kind of mentioned it, but this is someone whose bandwagon I was kind of getting on last year, and it's Kirk Cousins. I would like to see Kirk Cousins succeed. He is where Dak is now, where everyone's just like, fuck this guy. He will never win a big game. Like, just fuck this guy. Like, I couldn't think of anyone who was hated worse across the NFL fan base. It was bordering on prime Tony Romo type hate. And then he did the NFL quarterback series on Netflix. Seemed to turn his reputation around. People started liking him just for his personality. You saw a little less Kirk Cousins hate going into last season. And then as I mentioned,
you like that?
Exactly. And as I mentioned in the Falcons segment, like Cousins was truly playing elite quarterback ball last year, right up until his injury. Even I think he got injured on the game-winning drive against the Packers at Lambeau, like in the snow. Like that's a tough game, no matter who you are, especially in division for them, a dome team, and that's how he gets injured. And I would like to see him restore all that goodwill he'd finally earned across the NFL fan base. Can he do it? Will he do it? I don't know, but that's one guy I'm rooting for. I'm sure I could come up with a better answer, but that's what I got.
Okay.